when Nancy and Kit took their child back into the hospital, or took their child into the hospital because the child had lost weight at home, the child was in the hospital, as I recall, for 5 days, and if I remember correctly, gained 7 ounces or something like that. And then the child went home and was home for 4 days before the child was removed by the action of Judge Esther Wiggins-Lyles. The child was home for 4 days and gained 8 ounces, 1 ounce more than in the hospital. So how can you say that there's child abuse or neglect, that the child is losing weight when it gained more weight at home in a shorter period of time than it gained under professional medical care in the hospital? The problem was that a doctor had prescribed a formula at half the proper dose. And the parents didn't know that. Another more senior doctor identified that problem, corrected it, and the weight loss problem for the child was resolved. But that didn't make any difference to the CPS. Now, the thing that's very interesting about this CPS story is that there was a childless couple. And who was this childless couple? I can't even remember their names completely. One was an assistant U.S. attorney here in Washington. Probably, I can see the building they probably practiced in. The courthouse is over here. District Court and Circuit Courts of the District of Columbia. And his wife, who happened to be a fundraiser for green meanie causes, Al Gore type causes. So they were very much liberal leftist type lawyers. Her name was Sandra J.D. Dolliner, and his name was Steve Kaufman. He's a lawyer down in Charlotte, North Carolina now. And anyway, this couple was childless, and so they also lived about a block away from where the Child Protective Services office, and they had parties for the people in the Child Protective Services office. So when here's this beautiful baby Sabrina that's born and they're childless, then this couple, the Child Protective Services people say, oh, we see this beautiful child to give to this poor childless couple a block away from our offices. Well, then I'm a journalist for justice, and I did some Google searches, and I found that Sandra J.D. Dolliner was bragging on her Cornell University website about how she did a witchcraft ritual in the backyard of, when she finally had a child after this, she buried the placenta in the backyard, in the same backyard that Sabrina was playing in. That's disgusting. It's just disgusting. And she did with a bunch of her friends. Now, what's interesting is after I made that, apparent and Kit included in his arguments to the Court of Appeals of Virginia, lo and behold, that website was taken down. Now, if you and I wanted to take something down from a website, it probably wouldn't happen. But if we were connected to the U.S. Attorney's Office, yeah, you betcha, we could get that sub-website taken down. So, the undue influence of Steve Kaufman probably is the way that website of Cornell University, talking about his wife, Sandra J.D. Dolliner, doing a witchcraft ritual in their backyard where Kit and Nancy's child, Sabrina, was living as a foster child, is there. And you can also then see online where Sandra was holding Sabrina like a sack of potatoes, gazing lovingly at her daughter while Sabrina was sort of lost and looking off into space, totally being ignored. Yeah, she was on the knee of of Sandra. But if you look at the pictures, a picture tells 1,000 words. And you can see there's a disconnected foster mother. But because of their political connections and the corruption of the courts in Arlington, Virginia, they snatched this beautiful child, Sabrina, from a good couple, a sweet couple, Nancy and Kit Slider, and gave it to these powerful lawyer, politically connected Sandra J.D. Dolliner and her husband, Steve Kaufman, an assistant U.S. attorney, formerly in D.C., and then they authorized them to move out of state to North Carolina. And so as a journalist, I tracked them down and I delivered some things to their home and to their office so that people would know about their corruption and their theft of a child. And they're going to say, oh, it's not a theft, it's used by the courts. But let me tell you, our courts are so corrupt that it's a theft. It's a child snatching. And it's a disgusting piece of work. Right across the river in Arlington, Virginia. I can see the courthouse from here. It's just to the right of the Washington Monument as I'm standing here right now. And the judge, James Allman, who used to be a member of the House of Delegates, he, at the circuit court, endorsed the corrupt decision of Esther Wiggins-Lyles. And then the Court of Appeals of Virginia basically didn't even pay attention to what the father said, didn't pay attention to the fact about this witchcraft ritual being done, didn't pay attention to the fact that the key document wasn't in any of the documents that the lawyers put together. So the lawyers didn't want to do anything because another lawyer was the beneficiary of receiving this child. So they do their things for the bar buddies more than they do for their clients. And that's what's happening in America, in our justice system. And we, the people, have to stand up and stop this sort of thing. I'm sorry, my blood boils. It's hot out here, but that's not what gets me hot. It's what's seeing about the injustice in the courts of Virginia, and I don't pretend to think that it's not happening in other states. Thank you. Please get involved and demand that our judges be accountable to we the people, and if not, we remove them. Remember that Thomas Jefferson said judges whose erroneous biases are leading us to dissolution should be removed from the bench. It may, indeed, injure them in fame or fortune, but it saves the republic. Well, we have two judges, Esther Wiggins-Lyles and James Allman, and the judges of the Court of Appeals of Virginia, who have been involved in the dissolution of the family of Kit and Nancy and Sabrina Slider. It is an outrage. Citizens of America, this lawn here has been filled with hundreds of thousands of people for the Tea Parties. But let me suggest to you that this is every bit as important as the corruption in the executive branch and the legislative branch. The corruption in the judicial branch, we must restore our rights in America. Thank you. God bless you.